money, big roll up, big credit. And guess why they're able to issue all this debt? Because the ECB is buying it. Of a company that half the street knew was a fraud and is going to go bankrupt. Now, Mario Draghi would tell you, no problem. We're making money overall in our portfolio. The fact that we lost 150, 160 million on these bonds, it comes out in the wash. The point isn't whether the ECB is making money. The point is they are keeping crooks and zombie companies alive. This is exactly what Japan did for 20 years. It hinders long-term growth. Companies like this should not be walking around borrowing money. And that's kind of where we are today. You see what's going on in Bitcoin.
Do you own any cryptocurrencies?
I don't own any. Obviously, as a trader, I should have, but I only trade what I know. What I do know is it takes the same amount of energy to do one Bitcoin transaction that it takes to power 9 homes in the U.S. By 2019, it'll take up half the energy in the entire United States to run the Bitcoin network.
Sounds like the utility companies are a buy.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting that most of the people in Bitcoin are climate people. They're West Coast people. I don't quite get the connection. We've got this rogue currency that we're all going to support that is destroying the climate in some extent, but whatever.
So you're not going to take a position on whether Bitcoin is going to go up to 100,000 or 1 million or whatever if we're talking about bubbles, it must look to you like some of the greatest we've ever experienced.
I don't know whether it's the greatest we've ever experienced. Look, Bitcoin is like anything else. It's worth what people are willing to pay for it. And right now, people are willing to pay. I haven't looked in the last 5 minutes, so it could have varied time. But let's say they're willing to pay $17,000. That's what it's worth. The tulips were worth when people were paying that for them. Gold is what it's worth. What I do know about Bitcoin is the concept that it could ever be a medium of exchange has been eliminated because you can't do transactions, particularly retail transactions, with something with this kind of volatility. But if people think Bitcoin is worth $17,000, that's what it's worth today.
Last thing on this before we move on, there are people who want to hold Bitcoin because they're as critical of the Fed and other central banks as you are. So if they agree with your philosophy that the central banks are screwing this up, then what would be a better way to express that than holding something like Bitcoin?
That's an excellent question. I think at some point figure out when this is going to end and then either get out or go short. Because, by the way, when this ends, and it will, I'm talking about this monetary radicalism period we're in, Bitcoin will probably go down with the rest of the stuff.